time to come together and to celebrate friendship, celebrate relationships, and prepare for a very important election that is before us. And my personal thanks to all of those of you who have canvassed today or carrying literature, because this really will come down to every vote counting. When I was first asked to speak, I thought I'd spend more time talking about my platform, so I'm going to run through it real quick in case anyone here is new and hasn't heard it. But you can look at it on my website, I've got materials, but I really want to talk more about the journey I've taken and some of the experiences and the fact that some of the things I've learned along the way, because I think they're important for what we need in this time. And then I'd like to turn over my remaining time actually to, and I'll invite teacher Zach Branson, turn over to him and his students from the McLeod School to share some thoughts with us, because I think that's an important thing for us to be listening and hearing, and truly our kids are our future and the next, what we all work towards, and why we're doing this is really about our future and our kids' future. And so I thought it was most appropriate that they be the ones to end the remarks. So just briefly, in terms of my platform, a focus on healthcare, making sure everyone has access to a full range of physical and mental health care, educational opportunities, including investments in early childhood education, and an exchange of public service for college education and trade school to make sure, again, our young students have access to degrees and to the trades without having to go into debt, and economic development. So everything from housing to renewable energy, rural broadband, transportation, water systems, all these different pieces that are setting the stage for our economy to be strong, for the good paying jobs so that we can be caring for our families. Immigration reform is key. One of the things on the ballot is Measure 105. That's really an attack on our families and community. And if Washington, D.C. did its job and passed fair immigration reform, we wouldn't be caught up in this divisive issue between our communities. So this is really Washington, D.C.'s fault that we're even having that conversation. And then also our veterans, making sure we care for our veterans. There's a lot of talk about our veterans, but we have the VAs, the 3 VAs that serve our veterans in our district are among the lowest rated in the country. So it's one thing to talk about serving our veterans, it's another thing to fix the system and make sure we're caring for those who have served us. Those are kind of the basics of my platform, but again, what's really, I think more important is to hold up a mirror to you and have you see what I have seen throughout the 20 counties of our district. And as folks have heard me say before, regardless of party affiliation, we all care about our families, we all care about our communities. We have so many shared values, because going back to my platform, I've yet to meet someone anywhere on the political spectrum, from a hardcore liberal to a hardcore conservative, who doesn't want their family to have access to health care when they're sick, who doesn't want their kids to have access to educational opportunities, who doesn't want to be able to put a roof over their head and food on their table. Those things are shared, our care for family and community, our shared values. Let's get back to that. Let's fix what's broken, but let's start from that central point. And also, we are at a hosted by Umatilla County Dems, but I'll be the first to say, don't confuse the Republicans in Washington, D.C., who are hurting all of us, with our friends and neighbors and family members who are Republican. Because it really brings us back to this focus on the core that is true to all of us that we really need to be focusing on. So I started this journey almost 16 months ago, and I started out more in anger and frustration with what I was seeing not happen in Washington, or this direction that I thought was terribly divisive and tearing us apart. And as I met folks across our district, I began to see more and more these common things that we share, these common values, and also this reflection of each other in ourselves. And the most important piece of it, though, the way I started to be able to understand this was to listen. And so I found in this past 16 months, I feel at times I'm almost like a bridge between urban and rural areas, or between sometimes even liberal and conservative folks. And that partially comes from my own family. I've got an uncle and an aunt. My uncle is one of the most conservative people, who I've ever met, and an aunt who's one of the most liberal people. And they're both really good people. And they both love me, and I love them both dearly. And that, to me, is who we are as a nation. Because I like to say that the greatness of our nation, and I usually say that number, I just want to be clear, I'm referring to the United States because we've got a couple nations represented here tonight. But the greatness of our nation is that we are founded not on a common bloodline, but on common beliefs in democracy, in freedom, in justice, commitment to family, love for community. Those are the things that really make, that are the great essential things of our country. And they don't have party affiliation associated with them. They have these core ideas and core values. And yes, the care of family, and we can make the argument about what the Democratic Party has stepped up and focused on, the values of the Democratic Party. But I challenge us all to step through that and to really focus on the ideas, because that's what will bring us together. If we focus on the buzzwords or focus on this divisiveness, it will keep pulling us apart. And so I also not only been a bridge, but at times, honestly, I've almost felt like a traveling preacher, that I'm trying to convince people to believe in again, to believe in ourselves, to believe in each other, and to believe that government can be a force for good in our lives. I was talking to some high school students in Bend a couple days ago, and I asked them, I said, how many of you think that government can be a force for good in our lives? And almost all the students put their hands up. And I said, how many of you believe we're doing that now? And everyone put their hands down. We have to rebuild and reestablish that faith, and we do it through integrity, and we do it through the quality we bring, and focusing on the things that our communities care about, those shared values. I believe that our leadership is falling short right now, and the problems that we're seeing, I think, are a lack of listening. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've heard and some of the questions I've been asked that have challenged me, and invite you to think about them as well. One of the things that I've heard from a member of a tribal community when we were talking about experiences, and she was sharing her experience with me, a very powerful statement she said the rule for us was get out of town before sundown or be stabbed, hung, or shot. This is part of our community, and this is something that we need to hear. I was just at a forum on Warm Springs Confederate Tribes Reservation a couple days ago, and I had a young person ask me probably the most profound question I've had throughout 16 months of doing this, and she said, do you understand the price we've paid for our treaties? Think about that. We can answer with our heads or our hearts, and I went to kind of more cerebral. I mean, I studied Indian law. I know the history, but it's a more profound question than that. And so I think it's really what I challenge us here tonight to do. And again, this is beyond party platforms, this is beyond politics. I appreciate the reference to getting out and voting, but the reason why we vote, the reason why it matters, is really the conversation of tonight. And I challenge us all, because I challenged myself to do this when I started this journey, in meeting folks, having great conversations with people wearing the, big red Make America Great Again hats, where initially, viscerally, I didn't think there was common ground. I didn't think that we could have a conversation, we could find something in common. But if you look around this room, you can find something you have in common with every single person in this room, and you can find something different with every person in this room. And it's what we choose to focus on and what we choose to move forward that will define the direction that we're heading. That's the leadership we need. That's the leadership we don't have at the federal level, whether it's someone who's bullying communities or someone who's keeping quiet about it. Both are complicit in this lack of community building. So what do we need to hear? And where have we succeeded and where have we failed? And do we have the courage to address where we have failed? Especially for those of us with gray hair, that's really the fundamental question. And so with that, I would like to turn over at this point and invite Zach Branson, a teacher who wrote me a very incredible letter. He's a a teacher, a government teacher at the McLeod School, and he had an assignment for students to pay attention to the races and have dialogue and discussion around them. And he and students sent me letters that I received this past week that were profound to me, that had me so deeply moved. And essentially what they were doing is reaching out and saying things that needed to be heard. And so I invited him and his students to be here tonight and share with us. And what I asked him to say is essentially, if you were speaking to Congress, because what I heard from your letters is that you didn't feel like you were being heard. So imagine tonight that this group right here is the U.S. Congress. What needs to be heard? And with that, I wanted to turn over the microphone and invite you all to join me.
Well, like you heard from Jimmy, my name is Zach Branson. I am a third-year history teacher or social studies teacher at Nikiawe Community School. Real quick, Nikiawe is a very small 1A school. We have a population between 75 to 80 students. We're part of Dalton School District. So those of you locally have probably heard of us. You've definitely heard of our basketball team the last few years. But
Oh, yeah. We lost.
When you have the incredible privilege and challenge of teaching 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds about civics and about government and about what our democracy truly is, the hard thing you have is you have these great ideas and you have these inspiring motivations from your students, but you know they don't have a voice in our political system. And hopefully they don't lose their fire before they do turn 18, or hopefully they don't forget to register. Luckily, Oregon makes it pretty easy for us to register. So over the past 3 years, I've had an assignment both to national leaders, to regional leaders, and to local leaders to either have students write letters of support. We had 19 students turn in letters of support for either candidate in this race. 17 said right to Jamie. I think that's a testament to who she is, the fact that she's shown up in our district, the fact that young people can relate to her. People see someone that they want to be led by. That's something we haven't seen for most of their lifetimes. So it's very inspiring. I sent off the letters, and like every other time I've done this assignment, I expected to hear nothing in response. And this past Thursday, Jamie called me personally. During my prep period, I got a voicemail, so I decided to listen to it, and literally had to steal my emotions for about 10 minutes before I could call her back. Because as a teacher and as a leader of young people, you never know if your voice is being heard. You really don't know if your impact is being felt throughout the community. And for the first time, a leader of our potential leader reached back out and said, we want to hear from you. We want to know who you are. We want to know who your students are. We want to know who you care about, who you love. We want to know who we are leading. And that's never happened. And thank you so much for that. It makes my job. It makes my job that much more rewarding to know that the voices of my young students are actually being heard. And my students see me cry on a weekly basis, so it's like a little emotional. 4 years ago, when my wife and I were expecting our first child, my daughter Rose, we were watching every parenting tip we could ever see, and she's like, you have to watch this video from Ashton Kutcher. And I was like, okay, whatever. And Ashton Kutcher was on the Ellen Show, and he talked about raising their own child and having the privilege of raising a young daughter. And he said, yeah, we can afford any nanny we want to, but we want to be the people who raise our children. We always hear that we need a better world for our children, but it's backwards. We need to have better children for our world. That was the point when I decided I wanted to get out of financial services and to move back to Eastern Oregon and to serve our children. These are the next generation of leaders, of providers of industry, of thought-provoking ideas that are challenging my worldview every day, and I love it. So without their voices, we don't have a direction to go for. We don't have a way to go. So I've been doing everything I can on a daily basis, and it's an incredible privilege, and like I said, an incredible challenge to hear what these people have to say, to be inspired by their words, to be inspired by their efforts. And I'm very grateful for past students, present students, future students, and have definitely found an amazing place at Nikiawe. That being said, I want to introduce alumni from our school. Caitlin Melton graduated last year and is attending Whitman College right now in Walla Walla. One of our standout students from our entire history of the school. So, Caitlin, why don't you come up here? Thank you all very much.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Melton, and I graduated from Nicoya last year and had the privilege of Mr. Branson being my teacher. I'm actually going to Whitman College, and I'm majoring in politics. So,
Yeah, kids, go!
So a major theme last year, and still true to my heart, is gun violence, and within schools especially, but it happens everywhere. We need stricter gun laws, that's for sure, and our safety should mean more than just wanting to go buy a gun whenever you want. Another thing is healthcare. Everyone should have equal access to healthcare, no matter their age, their wages, whatever they need. Everyone deserves healthcare. And then education. Our education system is not the best. Personally, I actually got the privilege of having an amazing education and making sure my voice has been heard. But I don't think that every student can say that within other schools for sure. And I think our teachers deserve higher wages because they're going to school to, teach us, and they're helping the next generation learn to be good people, I feel like. So I think they deserve higher wages. And then lastly, I want to talk about the environment. Climate change needs to be recognized. Our world is rotting every single day, and the longer we go without recognizing climate change, it's getting worse and worse every day. I want to thank you, Jamie, for coming, and it means a lot. Not a lot of people do this for us, so I think it's important to listen to the younger generation, because we will be in, these positions later on in life. So, yeah, thank you.
Please join me in thanking her for her great words of wisdom that she shared with all of us. Thank you.